What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Real Frame Reviews, and today we are reviewing, or I'm reviewing, Avengers Infinity War. This is my ticket. This is the ticket I walked in with that was all straight and nice and cool, and it came out all crinkled and distorted and kind of damp because I was sweating in it. Usually these tickets come back in my pocket, or they end up in my car, or I end up throwing them in the recycling bin. But that ticket right there was indicative of how I was throughout the entirety of this movie. And let me tell you, throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, there have been times where more often than not, I have been a bit standoffish when it comes to superhero movies. Superhero fatigue. I couldn't wait for it to set in. All sorts of different things that I would undercut the movies for. Sometimes it were because, I just wasn't hip with it. And sometimes it would be because I truly felt that way. And my philosophy when I go into a movie, no matter what I see, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a superhero movie, any sort of fantastical drama or adventure, coming of age, I'm going to grade it on the same scale. If I were to go see Tommy Wiseau's The Room, I would rate it on a scale of what I would rate, Forrest Gump or The Godfather, or Persona, something along the lines of that. So I don't pull punches when it comes to these kinds of movies, and I was really ready to go into this one. I am not the normal sort of fanboy when it comes to superhero comics or movies. I didn't read the comics. I was into Civil War. I read maybe one or two issues of that. I was into old iterations of Marvel cartoons, so the old Spider-Man show, obviously the old Batman. So there are movies in sort of this cinematic universe that I do enjoy, as much as, let's say, a Lord of the Rings, or some of the Harry Potters. Good movies, right? There can be good movies that come from superheroes starring in them, right? And so I know that there can be films that are going to be like a Dark Knight or an Iron Man or Captain America, and the Winter Soldier, which really actually blew me away. And these are the things I'm looking for cinematically, okay? The biggest thing that Infinity War had to do was go up against not only all of their movies that they have previously put out, but also their competition. And DC, let's be honest, is not that great of competition. But when it comes to like the golden hall of superhero movies, Dark Knight still is standing above the rest. So it still has a lot of pressure, and pressure to put so many characters into so small of time, and that's 2.5 hours, which isn't a lot of time, clearly, for what I was willing to be in there for, and obviously people who are fans of the comics or the characters. And that's a lot to take on. It's a huge task. I mean, and I knew going in there was going to be some things with the writing that was going to, I was going to take issue with. But for the most part, I found myself sort of just kind of running right through that and just being caught up in the moment of what it is to see all of these characters go on. And for a brief moment, I feel like I understood what all these people are doing. I mean, going into this, I was talking to some people about what my favorite characters are, So it's like Batman, obviously, but that doesn't count right now. I've always loved seeing Spider-Man on the big screen. I've always had sort of this affinity, not infinity, affinity for Hulk. I love that Jekyll and Hyde sort of character. His movies aren't the greatest, but I still loved the character. And there is also Captain America and all these new characters that they give you that you haven't seen before, or at least I haven't seen before. And wow, I mean, you're invested in all of them, and obviously you can't have them all at one place in the beginning. So the writers did a good job putting them along, on different paths that would eventually collide. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers. We're already 5 minutes into this review, and I haven't really told you what it's about. But Infinity War is about a big bad named Thanos who is searching for all the Infinity Stones so he can become this huge godlike person, and he has a theory behind his madness, and I'll let you go ahead and figure that out. But it is something that is profound, because when I usually go into these movies, there are a few things I take away, especially Marvel movies. Terrible bad guy, fake deaths are a big one. You have that sort of cliched cookie cutter Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 structure style of a superhero movie or a comic book movie that really gets on my nerves. And always the good guys like playing down to their competition, almost like where they should just be able to just whoop this dude, or this other guy should be able to just whoop them, but they get caught in this big monologue about how they're going to destroy the world and all this stuff. It doesn't happen, you know what I mean? And this is it differs from all the other ones, and I think that's what I was so fresh. That's why it was so fresh for me leaving the theater and saying, "Wow, I almost wanted more of that." I can't wait till they take this in a different direction. I can see the direction that they're gonna go, or I have a theory about it, and I think I'm gonna be pretty close to that. But what they did in this movie was actually pretty spectacular. And I've listened to other reviewers, I've read other reviews, and they're split because some people aren't into or haven't grown up to or don't have a connection with these characters yet. And when they sit in a 2.5 hour movie and, these emotional these emotional lines of dialogue or these emotional scenes aren't hitting for them, then it becomes draggy. And there were times in this movie where it was a bit clunky for me, where I was like, okay, I don't know too much of that character. I'm not buying this relationship. This doesn't seem right. Why would this character, being so strong, be tricked like that? And those kinds of things did still come up, and that's going to happen, I feel like, in a comic book movie. But on the other hand, I have seen other comic book movies get away from that and be more fresh. And the way they did this was, dude, I was on the edge of my seat, just thrilled the entire time. I couldn't wait for Captain America to be on the screen, and then I couldn't wait to get back to Iron Man, and then I couldn't wait to get back to Doctor Strange. You know what I'm saying? So it kept rolling over, and I felt like the pacing and the editing, the cuts from here to here to here, actually was really well done, and they spread it out very nicely, very smooth, and it kept it going. It kept me locked in and ready to go. I thought the villains this time were threatening. I thought anything could happen in this movie because the big baddies were actually formidable this time, instead of oh, here's a guy like the Hulk that can just snap you in half like a twig. I mean, it's totally different than that. And I think that's one of those things that I was really shocked and surprised by. I can't tell you how much, how much I watch through the credits, and I'm just, my jaws drop, because there's so many names and so much going on in this world and this movie. And I couldn't imagine directing that and planning that and being a part of that. And I think the Russos did such a great job with that. And obviously then you have the actors that are portraying, some of our favorite heroes, and they still do a stunning job. And it is so good. You know what? This movie to me was something that I got more and more excited. And what this movie did was actually bring me back to some of those movies that I haven't seen in the cinematic universe. and just being surprised each and every time I go into one of those movies and being like, oh wow, that was actually well done. That was an interesting story. I've never heard this story before. Doctor Strange, who's that? You know, so I was enjoying going back and revisiting some of those movies before I came here, and it won't let you down. Like I said, there are some times where I don't buy some of the emotional connections that they're trying to give off. Sometimes I think they use comedy a little bit too much. But just when I think that, they come back with some heavy stuff, some heavy emotional scenes that hit, and they hit hard with one or two lines of dialogue. Sometimes one or two words, and it's profound. It's great. And this is coming from a freaking comic book movie. You know what I mean? So it's unbelievable. And I can't say enough about Josh Brolin and what he did. As the role of Thanos, because he does give you a moment to think about what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish. It is absolutely ludicrous, but you gotta stop and think to yourself, like, oh, you know, that's not as stupid as I thought it was, but it's still really bad. Like, you can't actually do that. That might be a thought that you might have in the back of your mind, but you don't actually go and search for Infinity Stones and do what he's trying to do. And it was just, you know, just scene after scene, just seeing this stuff, and the new weapons and the new costumes and the new fighting styles and all that stuff. I can't wait to go back and watch this one again. I'm really excited. I wish I would have watched it in IMAX, because I think they shot it on all IMAX. So maybe I'll have to go hit up an IMAX next time. Let me know what you think. No spoilers. You know, I'm sorry. I just had to get it off my chest about comic book movies in general. I'm not going to give them a pass because people have a lot of nostalgia hits with the characters in there. And I think people who are going to go in this and say, you know, it's the best movie ever, or give it a 9.2 out of 10 rating like it is on IMDb right now, I think you're foolish. Sorry, I was on a bit of a rant there. Technical difficulties. Anyways, I was saying about the people who are giving it a 9.2 out of 10 on like IMDb, I think you're a little bit insane. You have to sort of detach some of that nostalgia that you have about characters going into a movie, and if you're going to critique it in a way that is critiquing art, then I think you should. I mean, man, that sounds really snotty. But anyway, I'm serious though. Like, if you go in there, you can't just say best movie ever when you just said that about Black Panther, you know, a month and a half to 2 months ago. So, you know, what these movies do for people, bringing back memories and everything like that, I think that's great. Really, I do. Don't get me wrong. You know, this one is not like this is not as solid as like a Dark Knight. This is not, for me, not as solid of a movie as, let's say, Captain America Winter Soldier, where there are some of those cliches in there, but I think for the most part of that movie, it's more of this espionage kind of thing that's going on. So, you know, to each his own, but again, I think this is a solid movie. I'm going to give Avengers Infinity War a solid 3 out of 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you, and see ya.